Hello everyone, and welcome to today's video in Project Pack number 10. This is Julie Willand, and I am so excited to be here tangling along with you all today. I have been loving this project pack and these legend books that came with it, and I'm excited to go through some tangles with you today. Like I said, we are using this legend book. If you don't have this, you can follow along with whatever materials that you do have, whether it's just some tiles, or if you have a journal you've been working in, that's also a great option. But we are going, we're going to go a little crazy today, and we're going to focus on crazy versions of tangles that we love. But before we begin, I did have a little story I wanted to share with you all. I have some things I wanted to show you. Since this whole project pack is about the legend of Zentangle, I wanted to share with you a little bit about the Zentangle legend in my story, because it starts long before I worked for Zentangle, long before I had a Zentangle practice, and even before Zentangle was Zentangle. I'm going to go back about 20 years ago to when I was about 8 or 9 years old. My family had just moved to the neighborhood, and for those of you who haven't heard me talk about before, I actually grew up next door to Rick and Maria for most of my life. As most 8-year-olds, I was an artist. And you think back about that feeling that many of us had when we were kids, when we were artists, and we really believed that. And a lot of us lost that as we got older, and I know I did, until Zentangle came back into my life. But I had never been more confident in my artistic abilities than when I was about 8 years old. Moving to the neighborhood and moving next door to Maria was really exciting, and I was especially interested in her calligraphy and her hand lettering. And one day I was home from school, a little under the weather, not all that sick, but my mom did let me stay home that day. And Maria was coming down to have some tea with her on our front porch, and she brought me this old cigar box, which I still have, full of some paper and pens and tracing material so I could practice my letters. But the first thing in the box was this card. Like I said, this is about 20 years old at this point, and you can see it's been pinned to many cork boards over the years. But you notice the J is filled with what would become known as Crescent Moon. And so this was, like I said, about 20-ish years ago, and it was before Rick and Maria had developed the Zentangle method. But these patterns were, Maria had used them in her work for many years before. And so gave me this little card with the Crescent Moon. And while I was definitely excited about the calligraphy pens and tracing and learning, it was this letter that really caught my attention. And I actually spent a lot of time focused on recreating this. And I have pages and pages in this box of me creating this J, and then my brother's name is Luke, and my sister's name is Stephanie. And I just, over and over again, would recreate this J filled with Crescent Moon. And we all know now that feeling we get, that calm, that relaxation of drawing these lines, these repetitive strokes over and over and over again. And that's exactly what I was doing here. And I did it so much, just the same thing, J and Crescent Moon, or whatever letter it was, over and over and over again. And I just thought this was a fun story to share, because even before the Zentangle method became what we know it is today, it was a very much a part of Rick and Maria, and it was very much a part of me. So I just wanted to share that little story with you, my little legend. And my story doesn't stop there, but we're going to start tangling first because I know that's why you guys are really watching, and then I'll keep telling you a little bit more about my legend of Zentangle. So you want to grab your book or whatever it is you are working on today, and we're going to open to spread L6. So it's these two circles in the middle with the radiating spots. And like I said, today we are going a little crazy, and we are focusing on crazy versions of, tangles that we love. And so the first tangle we're going to do, as kind of a nod to the story I just told you, is Crazy Crescent Moon. And so I'm going to work with my black 01. You can also work with your brown if you want. It's totally up to you. And I'm just going to start in space number 1. And I'm going to just kind of aura inside the space. Just like that. And then I'm going to begin my crescent moon. Normally, when we draw a crescent moon, we draw little ladybug shapes all around the perimeter of the space that we're filling, all about the same size. Both Crazy Crescent Moon, we are going to use these little ladybug or half moon shapes, but they're all going to be kind of different sizes. Some might be fatter than others, some might be taller than others. There's really going to be no rhyme or reason to it whatsoever, because after all, this is Crazy Crescent Moon. So, begin, we're just going to draw. There's a ladybug shape we know and love. But then my next one, it's going to go like that. And then maybe a big fat one. Do one in the corner here and turn my book. I'm going to do a little tiny one. Maybe another little tiny one, and then a big one. Like I said, there's no rhyme or reason. I'm not working in any sort of pattern here. So you can just kind of do whatever feels right to you. And then after you have put your ladybug-like shapes all around the perimeter, we're going to go back just like in our original crescent moon, and we're going to aura these shapes. And then once you have your first layer of auras down, you can go ahead and add a second layer. Remembering to turn your book as you go. I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to put one more layer of auras down. And now that I put down that layer of aura, I'm going to go back and I'm going to do another layer of crazy ladybugs. And once I have all my different crazy ladybugs down, I'm going to again add some auras. So like I mentioned before, my Zentangle story, my Zentangle legend, obviously did not end that day on the porch when I was home from school sick. A few years later, when Rick and Maria did develop the Zentangle method, I was actually one of their first students. So they had called my mom and said, "What are the kids doing? We have something we want to show them." And so they came down to my house, and it was me, my brother, my sister, and my cousin who had been visiting from out of state at the time, and they gave us a Zentangle class. I was probably about 12 at the time. I'm going to put another layer of auras here. And maybe another little crazy ladybug. But you can imagine how exciting it was for them to be showing us this new thing and for me to see that old familiar pattern that I had at that point probably done a million times over, more so than what's in that box. And so there is Crazy Crescent Moon. You can go back and fill in these spaces with black ink, but I kind of like it white. I know, it gives it a little bit of a different feel to it, but that's totally up to you. This is your legend, so I'm going to go through multiple tangles here, but you are free to fill your spaces with whatever tangles that you want to really make this your legend. I'm just going to give you a few ideas, and then you go off and you create your own legend. So you can do this any way you want, but I'm going to leave those crazy little ladybugs just the way they are. And now I'm going to skip around a little bit. I'm going to jump over here to spot 7. And again, I'm going to aura the inside of this space. Yeah, so I was one of the first Zentangle students. But for a long time after that, I didn't really have a Zentangle practice. I still filled every letter I could with Crescent Moon. That always stuck with me. And every once in a while, I would try Zentangle again. But it wasn't until years and years later when I began working for Rick and Maria that I really began my Zentangle practice. But it was, such a part of me for so long before that, and it was never my plan to work for Zentangle, but I really do think that things always work out the way they are supposed to. And I think in my No Mistakes video, I told the story about how I got the job at Zentangle after losing my other job. So like I said, things always work out the way they're supposed to, I think. And here I am. The next crazy tangle we're going to do is Crazy and Zeppel. And this one's kind of a fun one too. I believe this is the first tangle that we kind of introduced a crazy version of. Regular in Zeppel starts with a grid, but Crazy in Zeppel just starts with all these random lines going in every which direction, no rhyme or reason whatsoever. But after you have all of your lines down, creating all of these different shaped and sized spaces, we're going to begin filling each space by squishing an orb in there, and sometimes we call it an egg, sometimes we call it like a Nerf ball, whatever helps you envision it. But what you want to do is redefine the line, and then when you get to these corners, you're going to kind of round at the corner, and then redefine the line and round at the corner. Redefine the line and round at the corner. And redefine the line, rounding at the corner. All the way around your shape. So you can kind of see it looks like we're squishing some type of egg or Nerf ball or something into these spaces. And I'm going to continue this, and we're going to fill every single shape. And there you have it, Crazy in Zeppel. That one's always a lot of fun. It adds a lot of texture to any of your tiles, whether you're doing Crazy in Zeppel or regular in Zeppel. But that is one of my favorites. Alright, so we've done Crazy Crescent Moon, Crazy in Zeppel. I'm going to go to another one of my favorites. I'm just going to jump over here. Use this space right here. This one you might want to use one of the bigger spaces, so like 17 or 19, and not necessarily these smaller ones, just because I feel like the more of this tangle you can get in, the better it looks. But again, we're going to aura the inside of the space, this space with Crazy Huggins. And this is one of my favorite tangles. I call it one of my mac and cheese tangles. It wasn't until we kind of introduced Crazy Huggins, I really fell in love with Huggins. When you do Huggins in like a straight grid, it's a really neat tangle, but it wasn't one that I was really ever drawn to. And then when Maria showed us Crazy Huggins, I was like, oh, okay, I like this a lot. So I do tend to favor the crazy versions of the tangles more so than the original ones. I don't know what that says about me. Maybe I'm a little crazy, but I think we all are, and that's okay. But we're going to start with like a set of orbs, kind of next to each other like that. And I'm going to turn, and I'm going to draw two more. And I'm going to turn my book, and I'm going to draw two more. You can see they're all different size and shapes. But I'm going to start by connecting. I'm going to start by connecting these two orbs with a C shape, but kind of a backwards C. So if you want to watch, I'm going to take off and land on this orb in a backwards C shape. And then I'm going to turn my tile. I'm going to skip this space and go directly to these two. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to take off and land. And I'm going to turn my book, and I'm going to do the same thing to these two. I'm going to take off and land, kind of creating these old-fashioned telephones. And I always laugh because when we have tea time, and if Maria's showing some type of tangle that involves this shape, the comment is always made, oh, an old-fashioned telephone, and then because I'm the youngest person there, they all look at me and ask if I even remember when telephones look like that, and yes, I do. For the record, I do. But after we have our 3 little telephone shapes, I'm going to go to these 2 orbs, and I'm going to again take off and land, creating that C shape. Take off and land, creating that C shape. And again, take off and land, creating that C shape. So you can see how this is already a little crazier than normal Huggins, because we have like kind of a 3-sided Huggins instead of a 2. But I like to start my crazy Huggins like this, and then I start to branch off by just adding random orbs of random sizes and connecting them, just building off of each other. And that's how I like to do crazy Huggins. I've also seen it taught where you just put down a bunch of random orbs to start and start connecting them, and that's also a way to do it. But I like to kind of build off of each other, and sometimes I'll do is thin Huggins, and then sometimes we have a big fat one. Sometimes they kind of are odd shaped. And again, with our crazy tangles, there's not a lot of rhyme or reason. I'm just going to pretend here that there's like an orb over here, and I'm just going off the space a little bit. So as we start to run out of room, I'll do that quite a bit. This one, it's really important to turn your tile or turn your book or whatever you're working on as you go. But there you have some crazy Huggins. And I always like to go back and aura the inside of all these shapes, all these backwards C shapes. Remember to turn your tile in your book. And Huggins, whether original Huggins or crazy Huggins, is one of my favorite tangles. I think because you're then left with this space inside to fill with another tangle if you want. And those are always my favorite tangles. That's why I love Huggins or Marisu or Tripoli. I like the ones where you can fill them with other tangles, and Huggins is a great one for that. You can fill it with Crazy and Zeppel. That one always looks great. Shattuck, Samuka, or Flux, or any of those organic tangles also lend themselves really well inside of Huggins. So you see Huggins creates this like weaving pattern. But what we've got here is this crazy, crazy weave that we're not really sure how it happened. And there you go. Crazy Huggins. Oh, I forgot one. I forgot 2. Okay, now there we go. Crazy Huggins. And we're going to go back and we're going to shade all of these at the end. The next one I'm going to do, I'm going to pick a spot. Doesn't matter, any one. So I'll do spot number 13 over here. And again, we're going to just aura the inside here. And you don't have to do the aura. I just like this little, I kind of like the effect it gives, especially when we go to shade. It's totally up to you. This is your legend. This is your book. And we are going to do crazy floors. And so basically, if you want to make a tangle crazy, the best ones to start with are anything that works in a grid. That we start with a grid. So bales or floors or Knightsbridge or anything like that, because you just make the grid completely random and your tangle is now crazy, like we saw in Zentangle, and we'll see here again with floors. So again, you just put these lines in. There's no rhyme or reason. Don't think about it. Don't try to make your spaces even. Takes all the fun out of it. And then once you have all your random lines down, I'm going to go back in floors, and you kind of make these diamond shapes right where the lines intersect. And then you're going to fill that in. And so you can also do that on the outside. And then we're just going to keep doing that all around. And some of your diamond shapes are going to be slightly off because you don't have, sometimes you don't have squares. Sometimes you have a 5-sided figure. So it's okay if they're a little wonky, if they're a little crazy looking. That is the point. Like you can see there, I mean, they're just kind of blobbish. Whoops. There are no mistakes though, so it's always a great thing to remember. So after you have your floors down, I'm just going to go back and I'm going to aura the inside each of these shapes. Just give it a little bit more dimension. And there you have it, crazy floors. So one of the next ones we're going to do, I'm going to jump back over to this side of my spread. Again, I'm picking here a space that's one of the larger ones, so kind of in the corners here, not maybe the middle one, because like Huggins, we want just a little bit more room. And I'm going to aura the inside of my space. And we're going to do Crazy Cadent. And this is another one where I didn't really fall in love with the tangle until I did it, the crazy version. So again, I don't know what that means about me, but I'm just gonna go with it. But Crazy Cadent can start a few different ways. And so I am going to start by putting an orb in the middle of my space. And then I'm going to put one east, south, west, and some kind of in the middle of those. It doesn't have to be perfect. They all shouldn't be the same size. Again, remember, we really don't want them to be all the same. And now I'm going to connect my orbs with an S shape. And I'm going to connect all of these outside orbs to this middle orb. So I'm going to start and I'm going to take off, do an S shape, and land. And from this middle shape, this middle orb, I'm going to take off and land using an S shape. And I'm going to do that all around. Each time you see I'm redefining this middle orb, or whatever it is you're working on. And so once I have all of those connected, I'm going to then connect them on the outside. So again, I'm going to be using this S shape, and I'm going to take off and land. So there, instead of doing cadent in like a grid, we're kind of doing it in the round. But we're not going to stop there. After you have this initial kind of blob shape, for lack of a better word, we're going to start adding some random orbs, and you can just connect them in any way you want. Some can be triangle shape cadence, or maybe you're going to do some square-ish, I suppose, is a better, more accurate description. Just like traditional cadent is done kind of square. Again, over here, I'm just going to pretend like I'm going off the page to some orb somewhere. And then just to give this tangle a little bit more texture, I'm going to go back and I'm going to kind of aura each of these S shapes, but starting and meeting at the end. And kind of watch me as I do this. And it just gives it a little bit more texture. Again, this is a great tangle you can fill with other tangles. I often like to fill cadent with well. It's also fun to work with different fragments that you might use in Tripoli, especially when you have these triangular cadence. And there you have it, crazy cadent. So I'm going to show you one more tangle today. You can pick any spot that you want and aura the inside. And as you can see, there's still a lot of spaces left in the spread. And so those are for you to make this your own. Maybe there's some other tangles that I haven't done that you can think of a way to make them crazy. Like I said, any of the grid tangles are great for this. So you can pick your favorites and fill it with that, or some other prompts, and I can show you some other ideas once we're done. But in this final one, we're going to do crazy printemps. Crazy printemps, it's kind of funny because printemps is already like a random tangle to begin with. But there's, for crazy printemps, we're going to combine some like variations of it a lot of different shapes and textures and things like that. So I'm going to start in the middle of my space, and I'm going to do a spiral that's kind of more oblong than it is perfectly round. And then I'm going to add some weighting here. I almost never draw print humps without adding this weighting, just because I feel like it gives it a whole new layer. And then perhaps over here, I'll do another one again. These are kind of funny shaped print humps, and we'll add some weighting. And over here, instead of doing a round one, my print humps is going to be square. Just like that. And in the corners is where I'm going to add my weighting. And maybe another square one up over here. And again, in the corners is where I'm going to add my weighting. Add maybe another round one. Maybe this one is round like regular print humps. Maybe I won't add weighting to that one. And over here I'll add some little ones. Little tightly wound print humps. They haven't really embraced the craziness yet. Like I said, they're a little tightly wound. And we'll do another square one over here. Again, as you can, there's no rhyme or reason. I haven't planned any of this out. I'm just seeing the space that needs to be filled. And there we go. We've got crazy print humps. So now we're going to put cap on our pen and pick up your pencil, and we're going to start shading. So I'm going to go back to the first one I did, my crazy crescent moon. And around this first layer of crazy ladybugs, no offense to all the ladybugs out there, I'm going to add some graphite to bring that layer to the top. I'm being a little light-handed with my graphite just because I don't want to oversaturate the area when I go back with my tortillon. Just to soften it, because it is going to pull it out a little bit. I'm going to go back in the middle here and add some, just give a little bit more, that second layer, some more depth and dimension. And then I'm going to add a little bit all around this outline that I put down. And go back and soften it. And there, we have shaded our crazy crescent moon. Next, we will go do the cadent. And there's a lot of different ways you can shade cadent as well. You can shade each individual little cadent, or you can shade kind of the whole piece. I'm going to add some graphite around my orbs. Oh, I just noticed here I missed a few. Missed one. That happens quite often. And then I'm going to go back with my torch on. I'm going to soften it out, bringing it out. To the middle. One thing I also like to do when I have kind of these shapes also twisting together, I'll go back with my micron and I'll add some like etch marks where all of those shapes are kind of twisting together. Gives it a little bit more character. You don't need a lot, you just need a few little there. And then I'll go back with my torch on, just go back over. I'm not gonna add any more graphite, I'm just gonna blend it all again. And that's Crazy Cadent. Now Crazy and Zeppel. This is another one. You can shade the entire piece as one, or you can shade each little stuffed egg, Nerf ball, or whatever it is that you stuffed in there individually. So I'm going to do it individually. You can see I'm not adding graphite around the whole shape. On 2 or 3 sides of it, depending on how many sides the shape actually has. And I'm going to go in and just smudge it out a little bit, soften the graphite that I put down. And you don't want to fill the whole space with graphite because you need some light in there. And then one thing I forgot to do with my cadent, which I'll go back and do, but just a little bit of graphite along the inside of these spaces. You can really see how shading gives everything an extra pop, some more dimension. So you really don't want to be afraid of your graphite. And I always tell myself I start light because if you want more, you can always go back and add more instead of trying to take away graphite. So I often shade in layers. Right now we're going to shade our Crazy Huggins, and this one's fun because you do get that like weaving effect. So I'm just going to put a little bit of graphite down on the insides of my C shapes. And I'm going to go back with my tortillon and just soften this just a little bit, pull it into the middle. And as you can see, the shading really helps to give it that weaving that some of them are going underneath the others. And then again, we're going to do this outline. And there we have Crazy Huggins. Next we'll move to our floors. And I'm going to shade floors the same way I did in Zeppel, where I'm going to kind of shade each individual little space. And then I'm going to soften that and spread it around with my tortillon. And then again, just right inside this little, my aura. And then finally our Crazy Printemps. And this one I'm going to shade each printemps shape separately, starting with the first one I put down to really make that one come to the top. And then doing that to all the ones on the top, pushing the bottom ones down a little bit just to give it all some more depth. And the ones that kind of get pushed to the bottom, I'm not really going to shade a whole lot because I don't want to fill the entire space with graphite. I just want to make these ones really, like make that one float to the top. This one, make that one float. Gives a little three-dimensional look. And then of course we'll go back so there, we went through 6 different crazy tangles. We have Crazy Crescent Moon, Crazy in Zeppel, Crazy Cadent, Crazy Printemps, Crazy Floors, and Crazy Huggins. And the rest of the spaces on the spread are for you to fill however it is you want, with more crazy tangles, or also because we are going a little crazy, you can also put some fun little prompts in there. And I'm going to show you a finished spread I have, where like you see some of the tangles we just did. But then if you roll again. This one, jump to spread L10 and use tangle number 10 there. So I haven't filled it yet, but whatever tangle we're going to put in there, that's the tangle you would use. Some bijouisms, a reminder to breathe, no mistakes. I put Hollyball in here. I thought this was fun because Hollyball is a crazy tangle. There's no rhyme or reason. You can't plan it out. There's, nothing really that you can do to make it crazier. So I threw it in there because I thought it was fun. We've got Crazy Well, Crazy Bales, our floors. Here, take a moment to appreciate your tiles so far. I think that's so important for us when we're in the middle of tangling, to stop and take a moment and appreciate the work we've already put down. Roll again and draw the tangle the original way. So if you landed on floors, draw normal floors in a grid. We have Cadent here. Here's Crazy Tripoli, where my triangles that I put down with Tripoli are all different shapes and sizes, which was kind of fun. We've got Printemps, Come Out of Your Shell. I thought this was appropriate for the Crazy Tangles because you're kind of stepping away from that original step out deconstruction that you're used to and doing things a little bit differently. We've got Crazy Night Bridge, a reminder to practice gratitude. What is something you're grateful for? And then Crazy Yinka. So these are your books and your pages, and I invite you to fill them with whatever tangles you like, your favorite tangles. I really look forward to if you have some more tangles that you know how to make crazy. I want to see those. But yeah, I really can't wait to see what you guys create. And then before I end today's video, we're going to go to spread L9. And what these pages are for are to provide for you to fill with different prompts that not necessarily of tangles to use, but where and when and how you're tangling, or maybe what tools you're using. And so we're going to fill in a few of these ideas. In number one, we're going to say the weather's getting nicer, so why don't you go and tangle outside. Or maybe, if you can, you want to tangle with a friend. Choose a different color pen. It could be brown, it could be blue, it could be a gel pen or anything, but just anything other than whatever pen you were starting with. And then finally, we're going to use 3 mac and cheese tangles. Whatever those might be for you. Mine would probably be Marisu, Crazy Huggins, and Halva. But there, so we're each going to offer some little prompts here in our videos, but if you want to fill your own, go for it. All right, everybody, thank you so much for tangling along in today's video for Project Pack number 10. I really can't wait to see what kind of craziness you guys can come up with. All right, everybody, happy tangling.